Hey,
I was the one who brought up the idea. That's what keeps replaying in my mind over and over again. I was the one who sat across from my husband on a random Tuesday night, sipping wine, thinking I was being modern, progressive, enlightened. I thought we were so strong that we could handle anything. That's how I framed it. We have everything, don't we? I remember saying, watching him twirl his fork through his pasta. What if we could have more? He looked up at me then, his brow furrowing slightly, lips parting like he was about to say something, but then he just nodded. That was his way. He always processed before he spoke. It's one of the things I loved about him. Thoughtful, considerate, a rock. I kept going. I don't mean anything drastic, just the option. Freedom if we ever wanted it. It wouldn't change us. I remember how his hand tightened around his wine glass, his knuckles going a little white. A flicker of something crossed his face, too quick for me to catch at the time. I thought he was just surprised. I should have realized then, should have seen it for what it really was. Doubt. But he didn't say no. He didn't get angry or call me crazy. He just exhaled and said, "If it makes you happy." That was it. For words. And I thought we were good. I thought we were bulletproof. First, nothing changed. Or at least I thought it hadn't. We still had our Sunday morning coffee runs, still watched our favorite crime dramas curled up on the couch, still kissed goodnight, murmured I love yous in the dark. But then little things started happening. He began staying late at work more often. That wasn't new, he had a demanding job, but now when I called him just to hear his voice he seemed distant, like I'd interrupted something. I told myself I was imagining it. Then his phone. He used to leave it anywhere, on the counter, on the nightstand, sometimes even in the bathroom. But now, it was always with him, always face down. Still, I told myself I was overthinking. Then came the nights when I suggested we test the waters. A flirtation here, a little adventure there. He never said no, never outright rejected the idea. But every time he hesitated. Sometimes he'd change the subject. Other times, he'd just stare at me like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize. And yet, I was the one who asked for this, right? So I convinced myself I had no right to be worried. Until the night he disappeared. That's when everything shattered. Started like any other evening. I got home late, dropped my keys in the bowl by the door, and called out for him. No answer. That wasn't unusual. He sometimes worked late, and I assumed he was still at the office. But then I saw his work bag, sitting neatly by the couch, right where he always left it. That was the first sign something was off. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages. I sent him a quick text. "Hey, you home?" The 3 dots popped up. Then they disappeared. I waited. Nothing. I tried to stay calm. Maybe he was in the shower. Maybe he'd gone out for a walk. Maybe. That's when I noticed the closet door. It was open. And inside, his side was empty. Completely. His suits, his shirts, his favorite worn-out hoodie I always stole on cold nights, gone. The drawer where he kept his watch, cufflinks, and loose change, empty. His cologne bottle still sat on the dresser, but when I picked it up, I realized it had just enough left for a final spritz. Panic started to creep in. I grabbed my phone and called him. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. Then I checked our shared bank account. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. I clicked through the transactions, scrolling frantically. And there it was. A withdrawal. A massive one. Half our savings. Gone. That's when I knew. He didn't just leave for the night. He was gone. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the bank app, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. Half our savings. Gone. I sat down on the edge of the bed, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. My breathing was uneven, shallow. I forced myself to think logically. Where would he go? I checked his email. Nothing recent, nothing unusual. I opened our travel app, scanning for recent bookings. Nothing. But then, I hesitated before checking the last thing. The thing I had been too afraid to acknowledge until now. Our messaging app. We had a chat where we dropped links for vacations, movie recommendations, date ideas, things we always said we'd get around to but never did. I scrolled through our last conversations. Days ago, he had still been talking to me like everything was normal. 2 days ago, want me to pick up that wine you like? Don't forget to send me the list for groceries. Love you. See you soon. A normal husband. A normal life. But then I saw it. The thing that made my stomach drop. A deleted message. Not from me. From him. Clicked on it, but it was gone. Just a timestamp. A blank space where words used to be. My hands started shaking. Who was he talking to? What did he delete? And then, like a cruel answer to my question, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A single text. I hope this was the freedom you wanted. I swear my heart stopped. I read it 3 times trying to make sense of it, but no matter how I looked at it, it felt like a slap in the face. He wasn't just gone. He wanted me to know why. I stared at that message, my mind spiraling. I hope this was the freedom you wanted. My own words thrown back at me, mocking me. I read it over and over again, trying to decipher the tone. Was it bitter? Sarcastic? Resigned? Was he angry? Or was this just closure? I called the number. Straight to voicemail. I texted back. Where are you? No response. I sat there in the silence, my whole body vibrating with adrenaline, confusion, and something else I wasn't ready to name yet. Regret. Then I did what any sane person in my position would do. I started digging. First stop, his email. Nothing unusual in his inbox, but when I checked the sent folder, I found something. A reservation confirmation from weeks ago. A one-way ticket. His name. A flight that had already taken off. He had planned this. Second stop, his bank transactions. The withdrawal wasn't the only one. A hotel charge, a car rental. All recent. I was too late. He had been 2 steps ahead of me the whole time. Third stop, social media. His accounts were still up, but the last post was nearly a month old. I scrolled through his tagged photos, looking for anything. Then, finally, I found something. A picture from 2 nights ago. A restaurant. A group of people laughing. And there he was, sitting next to her. Not someone I recognized. Not a coworker, not a friend I knew. A stranger. A woman. Leaning in close. Smiling at him like he was hers. And the worst part? He was smiling back. Couldn't breathe. I stared at the photo, my vision tunneling. The way he leaned toward her, the easy familiarity in their body language. It told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just some random woman. She was why. I zoomed in, studying his face, hoping, praying. I was wrong. But I wasn't. That was a smile I hadn't seen in a long time. Not with me. I checked the location tag. A restaurant across town. A place we had never been together. How long had this been going on? Had she been waiting in the shadows, watching me play house with a man who was already halfway out the door? I swallowed hard, my hands clammy as I copied the restaurant name and ran a search. Their website, a menu, and then, at the bottom of the page, a list of upcoming events. Live jazz. Every Friday night. The picture was from 2 days ago. That meant they went there together. And if this was a regular thing, I glanced at the clock. It was Thursday night. Tomorrow. Something inside me clicked into place. A decision I didn't fully understand yet, but one I didn't question. I was going to that restaurant, and I was going to find out the truth on my terms. Sleep didn't come that night. My mind was a storm, replaying every moment of our relationship, every sign I had ignored, every excuse I had made for him. Had he been planning this from the moment I suggested opening our marriage? Had I just handed him the perfect excuse to leave without looking like the bad guy? By morning, my anger had settled into something sharper. I wasn't just going to sit here drowning in questions. I needed answers, and I was going to get them. I spent the day preparing. Not just emotionally, I needed a plan. First, I called in sick to work. There was no way I could sit through meetings pretending everything was fine. Second, I did some digging. That restaurant had an Instagram page, and guess what? They posted weekly stories from their Friday jazz nights. I scrolled through them, searching for familiar faces. And then there it was. Last week's video. The camera panned across the dimly lit tables, couples swaying to the music, wine glasses clinking. and just for a second I saw him, my husband, sitting in the same booth as in the picture. With her. They were laughing, leaning into each other like they belonged there, like they were comfortable, like they were happy. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to keep watching. The restaurant wasn't huge, but it had a second-floor balcony overlooking the main dining area, the perfect spot to stay unnoticed while getting a clear view of everything. That's where I would be tonight, watching, listening, waiting for my moment. By the time I arrived at the restaurant, my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. I had dressed carefully, nothing too flashy, nothing that would make me stand out. I didn't want him to see me. Not yet. The hostess greeted me with a polite smile. "Table for one?" I nodded, forcing a casual expression. Actually, I was hoping to sit upstairs, just for the view. She led me up the narrow staircase to the balcony seating. It was quieter here, mostly couples tucked into small candlelit tables. But I wasn't here for dinner. I was here for them. And then I saw him. There he was in our booth. The same seat he used to take when we went out to dinner, the same relaxed posture, the same effortless charm. Only now he wasn't across from me. She was up close. She was younger than I expected. Early 30s, maybe. Dark hair, soft features. She looked at him like he was her whole world, like nothing else in the restaurant existed. And the worst part? He looked at her the same way, like I had never existed. I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't about emotions. This was about answers. I pulled out my phone and pretended to scroll while keeping my eyes locked on them. Their conversation was easy, familiar.
No awkward pauses. No hesitation.
This wasn't new. I watched as she reached across the table, brushing her fingers over his wrist. He smiled. Then she said something, and I saw his whole body react. He laughed. Not the polite kind, but a real, genuine laugh. That's when I realized. I don't even remember the last time he laughed like that with me. A weight settled in my chest. Maybe I had expected to see guilt in his eyes, or hesitation, something to suggest that this was temporary, that he was still tied to the life we built. But there was nothing.
No guilt. No hesitation.
Just a man who had already moved on, and I was the only one who hadn't. I gripped the stem of my untouched wine glass, my pulse hammering in my ears. Every second that passed felt like a confirmation of what I already knew. He wasn't lost. He wasn't confused. He had chosen this. And worse, he had chosen her. I didn't know how long I sat there, watching them, feeling like a ghost in my own life. But then, as if fate wanted to twist the knife just a little deeper, I saw something that made my stomach drop. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught. No way. She slid it across the table, her fingers trembling just slightly. I couldn't hear their words over the music, but I didn't need to. I saw the way his face softened, the way his lips parted in surprise before stretching into a slow, genuine smile. His hands closed around the box. He nodded, and then he kissed her, right there in the middle of the restaurant with the same tenderness I used to know. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I don't even remember standing up. My body just moved. I was halfway down the stairs before I even realized what I was doing. I didn't stop. I didn't hesitate. And then suddenly I was at their table. The moment he saw me, his entire expression changed. His face drained of color, his jaw tightening. A deer caught in headlights. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, my voice deceptively calm. "Mind if I join?" The woman's brows knit together. "Who are?" "I'm his wife." The silence that followed was suffocating. She turned to him, her face frozen in shock. His fingers twitched against the velvet box, his throat bobbing like he was struggling to swallow. I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Go ahead, open it. I'd love to see what my husband's mistress is giving him." A flicker of panic flashed in his eyes. But me, I had never felt calmer.
Bye.